Well, if gravity won, then gravity would be like, I don't care that there's no space for the air. The water's staying with me.
Okay.
Gravity's bossy, apparently, in my mind.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a science teacher.
I'm Cheryl, and I slept through science.
Each episode will tackle a science question you may have learned in school, but can't quite remember or fully explain.
And I'll take the risk of asking the dumb questions so that we can all understand the science we slept through.
The bell has rung. Let's get started. Welcome to lesson 55. We are answering listener questions. Cheryl, what listener question are we answering today?
Ryan, this has been so much fun hearing questions that other people have, because sometimes it's hard to dig into my brain and figure out what's even in there wondering. So thank you, listeners, for helping out with our podcast.
Yes.
This one's fun. This one is from a child named Gwendolyn, and she and her mom, Ingrid, listen to our podcast and are Ryan's friends, and that's really fun. And I don't remember how old Gwendolyn is, though. I knew her when she was little, and I have not seen her in years. Elementary school?
Yes.
All right, this is from Gwendolyn, who is in elementary school. And Gwendolyn asks, why does the liquid in a straw stay up when you cover the top?
Did you ever do that in restaurants? Did you ever play with the straws?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, this is a classic kid question. So I love this being we have some more kid questions coming up, and I love this being our first one because I totally did that. It was so much fun to play with it, or see if you go up a little bit, or I don't know, just different things you could do with it. Yeah. How about you? Did you as well?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't realize it at the time when I was growing up, but now looking back, I was a little scientist from the get-go, and I would test things and try things and do all these different things and was fascinated with why the world worked the way it did long before I knew what science was, or that I liked science or was into science. So most definitely I played with my straw and water, and I may be known to do that as an adult from time to time still.
I love that.
All right, let's get into the pre-assessment then.
Okay.
What do you think is going on because you've done it. Yeah. So what do you think is involved with why can the water stay in the straw when you hold the top?
Well, is this possibly related at all to our topic last week where we talked about vacuums?
It could be.
Because we talked about air and air pressure, which makes me think about how air also takes up space, even though we don't see it, and even though we can move our hand through it, that it still is a substance taking up space.
Okay.
And so I would think it would have to do with some air pressure versus water pressure situation.
Okay.
This is involved air and water. So this is all levels of complicated. But it's funny that if that's true, if it has to do with the amount of space air is taking up, and then it just kind of vacuums, or I don't know if it's vacuuming in this case. Science doesn't suck. I know that part. But, if the water's there because there is no more air to fill that space, that is stronger than gravity, which is wild. That's so interesting.
Air is no stronger. There's no air to fill what space?
Okay, so if my finger was not over the hole of the straw when I lifted it out of the water, then the entire straw would be full of just air.
Okay.
With no water in it.
Okay.
But when I put my finger over it and pick it up, it has water at whatever level you put it in.
Okay.
So air can't get in that space when my finger is over the hole.
Oh, the space that the water is in. That's the space you mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that, whatever that is stronger than gravity.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, if gravity won, then gravity would be like, I don't care that there's no space for the air, the water's staying with me.
Okay.
Gravity's bossy, apparently, in my mind.
Okay.
But the gravity is not as strong. Usually, like a drop will come out. You know what I mean? Like a little bit on the end
Mm-hmm.
when you do that will come out. But the whatever force or whatever it is that's keeping the water in there is stronger than gravity. It's interesting.
Okay. So you're sure that that force is stronger than gravity?
Well, yeah, because otherwise gravity would win and gravity
Okay.
lost.
And gravity lost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So then what do you think is happening when you take your finger off of the straw?
Then air can enter from the top and gravity can do its job again.
Okay. Why does air entering from the top allow gravity to do its job?
Because then air can fill the space where the water was. There's no longer, I think it might be a vacuum, and there's no longer a vacuum.
So you think that there's a vacuum in the top part of the straw? Is that what you're saying?
Kind of. It's maybe it's a vacuum. Or it might just be like there's no more air to fill the space of the water. It's like it is like a vacuum, because if you somehow, like if you sucked the water out, let's say you kept your thumb on the top of the
Uh-huh.
hole of the
Uh-huh.
straw and you like sucked it, you
Yep.
could get that water out and the straw would shrivel. It would need to shrink because air can't fill that space.
Okay.
And the walls of the straw are not strong like the walls of the spaceship.
Okay.
And so it
Okay.
would just like crumple. These are related. I don't know if it's exactly the same thing, but this is related to last week's question, which I never would have thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Those are some good thoughts. You know, Cheryl, we put the questions in order for our different lessons
Yeah.
just willy-nilly. We didn't have any sort of plan for the order of all of these listener questions we were going to answer, did we?
No, there was very little thought into
There
the
was.
order, actually.
There really was. It was like, how about this one? How about this one? How about this one? And yet, you still made a connection between this week's lesson and last week's lesson.
It's kind of fun how that worked out.
It is kind of fun because you are definitely on the right track
Nice.
with vacuums. Now, exactly, is it a vacuum? Is it not a vacuum? You could split hairs around that. But the concept that leads to a vacuum that we talked about in last week's lesson is directly related to the straw. So nice job making those connections.
Yay!
Yeah.
That's exciting.
So it all has to do with air pressure, which you also talked about. You talked about air pressure and water pressure. And the water pressure in this case isn't actually as big of a deal, but the air pressure definitely is.
Okay.
We talked before about air having pressure in all directions. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Okay.
And one even of our holiday episodes.
Yes, I think when we talked about balloons. With the Thanksgiving Day parade, right? So air is constantly pushing in all directions, and that is air pressure.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. That is happening in your glass, your drink, when your straw is in it. There is air pushing on the surface of your drink. What drink do you want us to talk about as an example?
My water. This is the child who asked the question, so I switched from my wine to my water. Here's my water.
Okay. So you've got water in there, and if you had a straw that was in it, well, even if you didn't, the air above it is pushing down on it. Is that? Yes, I can see you through the glass. Very nice.
I realized I could make funny faces.
And if you're listening and you want to see those funny faces, just check us out on YouTube because we're also on YouTube. So anyway, the air is pushing down. Your straw is open at the top, and there's air pushing down on it as well.
Okay.
Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing we didn't really talk about was the reverse of this whole circumstance. Have you ever tried putting your thumb on the straw before you put it in the water and then putting the straw in the water?
So the version of that I've done is a bucket in a bathtub.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
it's
what
like
happens?
put the bucket upside down on the
Mm-hmm.
surface of the water, the tub, and just push it straight down.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps the air inside
Mm-hmm.
of the bucket, even though
Yep.
it's underwater.
Exactly. And the reason is because that air pressure can't push the water up the straw. Because that's what's going on. Because you're right, gravity is pulling the water in your glass down. But
Yeah.
because there's air pressure pushing on the surface of the water, if you put a straw in it, it actually pushes the water up the straw until it reaches the point where it's balanced with the rest of the air pressure, which is at the surface of the water. Does that make sense?
I think so.
I was going to say,
Can you say it in like a slightly different way?
yes, I can. The air pressure is pushing on the entire surface of the water.
Always.
Always. I mean, unless there's no air, then it's not.
Yeah, but we would not be alive to watch that happen. So
Yeah, that would not be a great day for us. So the air is pushing down on the surface of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, that water doesn't have anywhere to go, right?
Yeah.
Because it's in the glass. It just pushes it into the glass, into the sides and the bottom. And obviously gravity is also pulling it down. But when you put a straw in there, some of that water can go up that straw, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Equal with the surface of the water.
And it'll go up
like
until
it still matches.
Yep, it'll match the level of the water in the glass because all the air above the top of the straw is the same air that's above the rest of the water in the glass.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all pushing down with the same amount of pressure.
Yeah.
Okay. Then when you put your finger on the top of the straw and you pull the straw up out of the water, it's basically just like it's still in the water. Because in the glass
of water.
Because the air pressure that was pushing on the surface of the water is now pushing on the bottom of the straw where the water is. It's the same amount of pressure. Because remember, air pressure is in all directions.
Oh.
So it's
just
still
not going to go
pushing.
anywhere.
It's not going to go anywhere because the same force that was pushing it up the straw when it's in the glass is still the same amount that's pushing right there when you pull the straw up.
Yeah.
Now then what happens when you take your thumb off? Why does that make a difference now?
Because then the rest of the straw can fill with water.
Sorry,
air.
When you pulled it out, there we go. I'm like,
with
there's
air.
not, yes, with air.
It replaces the space where the water was with air because it has like room for more air to come in.
Yeah, more air that's pushing down. You're preventing any more air from continually pushing down. Whatever the air is that's in the straw, you've trapped that. And it's constant, it's not changing, right? But if you let it go, then the air that's above that can push down on that air, which can push down on the water, whoosh, and the water can come out.
Interesting. That's cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
There you go. That's it. That's how it can work. It's very cool. It's super fun. I would actually sometimes I'd have the straw out of the water, put my thumb on it, put it into the water, and then let it go. And then actually there's like a little bit of a rebound. So when the water goes up, because it's moving, it has a little bit of inertia and it goes up and then it comes back down again. And I would see how high I could get it to do that. See if I could get it to go up
I
high.
like that.
So there's all sorts of fun things that you can try. You also talked about connecting it back to the vacuum again, that if you had your thumb on the end of the straw with the water in it out of the glass, and you put the water end in your mouth and sucked in on it, that you think you'd be able to get water, but that the rest of the straw would shrivel up.
Yeah.
What makes the straw shrivel? Do you know?
Air pressure.
Okay. Did you say that because that's like the theme for the lesson, or because
yes,
you have some sort of understanding behind that?
Both.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about how air pressure would cause the straw to shrivel.
Well, if there is a set amount of air inside of the straw,
Mm-hmm.
and now it needs to fill all of the space inside of the straw, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to spread out
Yep.
and become thinner.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then the pressure from the outside air would push in.
Mm-hmm. And the pressure on the outside hasn't changed at all. It's still the same as it always has been. But the pressure on the inside, because it's spread out more, goes down. The pressure decreases
Like in
inside the
space.
straw. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's
Or like
why.
a high altitude, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
That's
it. That's
why-
why it collapses like that.
That's why if you're on an airplane and you have a water bottle, it does like a little crinkle.
Yes, although when you go up, it actually expands. Have you ever had like a bag of chips that you haven't opened or something like that?
Oh, yes.
Right? And then
Yeah,
when
that's
you
why things can
land,
leak
it
in your bag.
crinkles.
Yeah.
Mhm. Exactly. And that's right.
Yeah.
Because even though you don't notice a huge difference, though, if you've ever had like a sinus cold or something and you've flown, you've definitely noticed.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pressure is a little bit lower in the plane. They pressurize the cabin. But as you go up, the air around you outside, because you're so high, is lower than what we're used to on the ground. And so the pressure inside the cabin of the plane is still a little bit low enough that, yeah, you can see those differences because there isn't as much pushing on the outside anymore, but the amount inside is the same. So its pressure isn't actually increasing. It just has less to push against it to resist it. So it's able to look like it's pushing out more, even though technically it's pushing with the exact same amount of force, just that what's around it is less.
Wow. Okay, so Gwendolyn, here's my challenge to you. Next time you fly on an airplane, this is going to require a lot of patience. I don't know if you're up for it. You get your cup of water, you get your straw, put your finger on it, you hold it up, and as the plane takes off until you reach cruising altitude, you keep it there and you see what happens to that straw and that water. It's gonna take a while. You're gonna have to be patient. I don't know what else to tell you.
You know, that would be quite the experiment. And I'll bet the flight attendants would be a little curious as to what was going on there.
Yeah, a little
Although
bit.
I will say I was talking this week with my students in my class around some measurements that I took when I was flying, because there's an app you can get for your phone that actually allows you to use the measurements that your phone is always taking and but give you the actual readout like a graph. And so I've definitely done it during takeoff and landing with the accelerometer to figure out how much we're accelerating when we're taking off and landing. So I've definitely done that before on a plane. So
I usually just listen to a podcast, but I'm happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's fun. Oh, and there's one more thing, Cheryl, that you also talked about, which was the force in your straw being stronger than gravity.
Yeah.
Remember saying that?
Yes.
You're sort of right and sort of wrong. It's actually equal to gravity. Because if it was stronger than gravity, then the water would be going up your straw.
Oh, that's a good point. It all just balances out.
It all just balances out. But you're right that it is impressive that just with your thumb there, you can overcome the force of gravity. It's pretty impressive.
And I remembered how I use that trick these days, or if you want to try a friend's drink before they try it, but you don't want to like sip on their drink, you just stick a straw in, put your little thumb on it, and then like boop, try a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Of their drink.
Well, there you go.
So there you go too. If you want to sample something that's liquid, without like germy land, there you go.
I mean, unless you put the straw in your mouth, in which case, and then you put it in another drink, then
you don't. Okay, you don't continue. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's just the once.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, good to know. Well, you know what's next, Cheryl.
I thought I distracted you from that, so I'm disappointed that you think anything is next.
Your quiz!
Oh, okay, fine. My distraction was not good enough. I'll try again next time.
No. Yes, my students try that sometimes too. They try and
Wait,
get me
really?
off track and think that I don't know that that's what they're doing.
When they're like asking you about your favorite Star Wars movie or something like that.
Yeah. So, all right. Why does water move up a straw when you put a straw into water?
I'm putting the straw in the water. Well, air pressure. Because the air pressure is pushing the water down, and that's why it's all just like in the little glass. So then it continues to do that if a straw is there, because there's still like air in the top of the straw. Nothing's really changed.
Okay, great. Why is the water in a straw at about the same level as the water in your glass?
Because the air pressure inside of the straw is the same as the air pressure outside of the straw.
Oh, see, that one you were much more confident in, weren't you? Okay. What keeps the water in the straw from falling out when you put your thumb over it and you pull it out?
Because also, all of the answers are air pressure. Air pressure, it is the air pressure up, like from the bottom of the straw, is keeping the water in there. Up and down are the same, and gravity's the same, so it just doesn't move.
And what causes your plastic water bottle to crinkle up when you land in a plane?
Because different altitudes have different pressures. Even though like plane cabins are somewhat stabilized, it's still going to be affected. And so when you go up in altitude, it would expand the water bottle. And then when you go down, it would shrink it. And that's because the air inside the water bottle is from sea level or wherever your airport was, where you started, and then went through a whole journey, to be honest with you. It doesn't know what's going on at this point. I'm glad we have like holes in our body, like ears and mouths and noses to like regulate those things better, because that's then we'd be like that water bottle.
Yes, the water bottle that you didn't fully explain the answer to.
Because then the air pressure on the inside of the water bottle is like normal air pressure, and the air pressure up high is less. Less air pressure.
Okay, so then what does that do to the bottle when you go up?
It expands.
Because there's more pressure on the inside. And let's say you open it while you're up there.
You would release that pressure and it'd go back to normal.
And then you like put the lid back on. But there's still some water. And
now
then you
it has like 20,000 feet air pressure. And then you go down, and then it like shrinks and shrivels, because now the air pressure on the inside of the water bottle is less than the outside of the water bottle.
And so the pressure on the outside pushes it in. There you go. Nice job.
Yay.
One final just kind of bonus for you. If you are interested, I will put a link in the description to a YouTube video from a YouTuber that I enjoy, who did a whole test about what is the largest straw that you could actually suck water up into. Like, is there a limit to how tall you can make a straw that you could actually still get liquid up to your mouth from?
That's fun.
So I'll have that for you. But unfortunately, we are out of time. So why don't you pack up all of your stuff and get ready for my closing remarks. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Slept Through Science, or on Twitter at Slept Science.
If you have dumb science questions like I do, please send them to us. You can email us at isleptthroughscience@gmail.com, or you can even send us a voice memo and we'll play it on the podcast.
Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about our podcast on social media.
Thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
Ah! The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.